Professor Roberts, welcome one more time. You have an amazing experience mediating between law enforcement and civilians. Tell us what have you learned in terms of how different these cases are than, let's say, a commercial case or tort case. How is mediating between police officers and community members different?
Right. First of all, it's thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for the question. I'll say the difference. First of all, what I'll say is I believe that there are some similarities, and then I'll talk about the differences. Right. So when there's a violation of fairness, and let's kind of to go back and give a bit of context. A lot of the cases I'm mediating are cases that involved bias or discourtesy. So, an allegation of bias. You pulled me over because of my skin color or because of, my race, or you were just rude to me. And that was what we did at the city attorney's office. And so when there's a violation of fairness, I think that is consistent. That's very similar to the commercial cases that we did and that I've done, is that there's something because people will go to the ends of the earth to right that thing, to make it right. It's like logic goes out the window. They don't care about, it's not about a cost analysis. It's not about anything that's rational. It's like, it's not right. It wasn't fair. And so I think that the energy of that is in the room when I'm having when I'm conducting the mediations. The energy of the it's not fair is in the room. But the difference is, there's a couple of differences. One is there is no promise of an ongoing relationship. There's not a promise, there's not an intention, there won't typically be, we're not neighbors. We're not going to see each other again. We don't have to work together again. Oftentimes in commercial cases, there is some ongoing relationship, or you have to see each other in the work environment, where this is just like, I'm really angry, this happened, and I'm going to let you know how I feel in this moment, and I'm going to just unload on you. So the community is just going to be angry and just unleash this acrimony right on the officer. And obviously my goal there is to make sure that doesn't happen, that happens in a constructive way. But that is a lot different than the cases that we were doing that were more commercial based. The other thing is that there's the historical context. So every conflict has a history, but the history goes back as far as the people that were in relationship. Whereas this historical lens is greater than the two people at the table. And so oftentimes I'll have people say, officers especially, but I'm not, like, that was a long time ago. Like, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the things that you're accusing me of. And the person in the room might not necessarily have experienced that from that officer, but we just talked about decision making. We just talked about the things that shape our decisions, and often that's observation that's based on data that we collect, and some of that data may not be 100% accurate. It may be influenced by past interactions. It may be influenced by past stories. It may be influenced by the media. So all of these things are in the room. And so that makes the conversation a little bit more, how can I say, lively, or more, combustible, if you will. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So you're saying bias plays a role, history plays a role, and past plays a role. Would you say then that conflict that involves policing and community is difficult conflict? Would you call it a difficult conflict? And even if yes or no, what is your perspectives, if you can share your wisdom on dealing with difficult conflict? Because it's such an important topic for us to understand that idea of difficulty. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. In my opinion, these are difficult mediations, difficult conversations, because of all the things you mentioned, because of the history, the context, the history, these aren't. And what I can say is this, and then I'll get into perspective on difficult and how to handle it. But you know, if you decide to do the work, if you're looking at peeling back the onion, then it's difficult. If you're looking at placating both sides, then it's not difficult, because we maybe in a different conversation we can get into this, but the mediations that we would conduct were designed to be transformative, whereas mediations that the department conducted, they're called ACRs, alternative complaint resolution processes. I'm not saying their intention wasn't to be transformative, but you know, essentially it was kind of like, hey, you know, this is, you know, you just say I'm sorry, you know, slap on the wrist, and it was kind of like this kind of shuttle diplomacy thing that didn't really, it was very surface level, and it was there's a different outcome when you sit people across the table and you get into the why, and you start to, and those are difficult conversations because you're unraveling the story behind it, right? That's difficult. So it's from, at least from my perspective and my vantage point. And so I'd have to say that my perception here is, to be successful in this kind of mediation, you really need to be with both sides. You need to be with both sides, because you have to become a trusted navigator, right? Because I can't take you to this place of understanding if you don't feel that I understand you. I can't create understanding between you all if you're thinking in your heart, this guy doesn't get me. He doesn't understand. And so you have to just be there. So in the pain of the officer who's saying, I feel offended that you even said or suggested that I'm racist because of all these things, I need to be with that person in that pain and that shock and that disgust and that frustration. And then I need to be with the community who's like, I've seen this happen for so many years, and I've this and I've that, and I need to be with that person there too, and say, and help them understand. I understand how you might be feeling. I see the pain, and then from there, you literally become the bridge, right? Because I have to then become the thing in the middle that understands both sides and can coexist. And that I share with and give to the participants. So that's
You
my
know, I want to repeat what Professor Roberts just said to us. I think this is powerful, right? I cannot bring understanding unless I understand you. I cannot bring understanding unless I demonstrate that I understand you. I think that is a very deep point. Not only we can apply to cases that involve law enforcement and community members, or tort cases or commercial cases or international cases, we can apply this to cases in our home, talking to your spouse, to your child. How can you bring empathy unless you show or demonstrate empathy? And then you said, I need to be with you. I think those are powerful words by you. Let's get a little deeper into that. Just one more question on the same topic, and then I want to hear more about you. I have seen your magic. I've seen you do some amazing public facilitations. I don't want to name them now for confidentiality purposes. And in conflicts on a large national scale, interstate scale, where you brought healing. Tell us, what do you think mediators, as mediators, are we healers? Are we supposed to bring healing to conflict?
Oh, wow. Brother, you always ask the good questions. Yes, first of all, so this is a philosophy. This is my philosophy. And I believe, and I can't speak for everyone, but I can, speak for myself. And I believe that, blessed are the peacemakers. And I believe part of my role in the world is to heal, is to be a peacemaker, is to bring healing. And I don't get me wrong, there's many things that can happen in terms of, you don't have to heal, you can just repair, you can just, we can make lots of money. But I think core to my character is bringing healing. What brought me to the work was it was 94, you had the Rodney King riots that happened. And I live in that neighborhood. My parents, my dad still lives there, but I grew up in this neighborhood and saw the community torn apart. And I think the world did. And my heart was to fix it, to heal it. And this is what brought me to the work. And so I feel as though my job, my purpose, because that's bigger than a job, is to bring healing. And I'm not saying I'm unsuccessful. I cannot. And by the way, there's a difference here, because I can't force folks to heal. Maybe they're not ready. But my job is to create the environment by which that might occur, right? So my heart is, let's talk through this. Let's not be okay with this just sitting at the surface. Can we have a conversation that goes beyond? Can I spend a bit more time with you to understand why you're in the position that you're in? And in that space, there's hope for them seeing themselves differently, because somebody's spending time with them and asking the questions and maybe holding up a mirror and saying, hey, I see you, and you can see yourself, and whatever you see, it's okay. And so, yes, I believe the role of a mediator is in part to be a healer, because you look at the world and we need healing.
Part of my role is to bring healing to this world. Beautifully said. Going to some personal part, if you allow me, just a couple of questions, Professor Roberts. First one is simple one, if you allow me. What do you think makes a good mediator?
Yeah. So what's interesting is you and Judge Danny Weinstein always talk about this, and I say it now all the time because it's so true. The people that I believe, that I see, that are very successful at this work are the ones that have done the self work. So I believe what it takes to be, I mean, there's all kind of tools and things like listening and all the stuff that you'll learn, active listening and all that. But I believe if you're going to be truly successful, you have to do the deep self work. And I'll tell you why. It's because although we're very different, like all the people on this call, we live in different places in the world. We have different backgrounds. And so we are very, very different. And at the same time, we're not. At the same time, we are not. You have hopes for your family. You have fears. You have concerns. We want safety. We want wellness. We want to protect our loved ones. We are the same. So if I can do that work internally and understand who I am and what my fears are and what my concerns might be, and then know that my fellow person is really the same, they're dealing with the same stuff, that I believe is what makes a great mediator, because we can see the similarity and respect the differences. That I believe is what makes a good mediator.
I'm smiling because I'm taking away so much from this brief moments with you. And even though I know you so well, I need to do this more often. Just record you and talk to you. What I'm hearing now is understanding self maybe is the way to understand others. Understanding self maybe is the way to understand others. Professor, did you have to overcome something to become a better mediator? I know you're a very good mediator. You may not say it, but I can say it. And would you share, if I may ask you, in this public setting, would you share something that you had to overcome? You had to do some self-work to become a good mediator?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get a little vulnerable here. For me, it was the belief that I could. And I knew I should, but the belief that I could, because of the magnitude of the things I was seeing. And, folks trust you. Again, I'm at the city attorney's office. People are trusting you with these conflicts that they've been ensnarled in for years. And there's a humility that comes along with that. Like, wow, you're here in front of me, and I know that I'm a broken person and I'm working on myself. And who am I to step in and help you all resolve this thing. So for me, it was this kind of like under this, and this is where it kind of goes back to my purpose in the earth. And I'm here to heal, and I'm here to serve. And so that's my heart. But it was this belief that I could, and that I should, and that I was the right person, that I was the one. I raised my hand and say, I can do it. And so that to me was something that I had to overcome. And I'm thankful that I do. I overcome myself every day, and I'm thankful to God for that.
The belief that you could and that you should. Allow me to add one thing to it. I think you almost went there, but if you trust me, the minimum I can do is to give you my best. Right? If you're trusting me with the most intimate, the most difficult, the most private part of your life, your conflict, right? The minimum I can do is to give you my best. I appreciate that. Maybe the last question, Professor, we're right on time. And let me see if anybody else has a question. But let me make my question for you, Professor, is let's apply this now globally. We have had discussions on policing, community members, a little bit discussion on role of us as healers, what makes a good mediator, and then how do you overcome, or do you have to overcome a few things to become a good mediator? And both you and I both agree we do. It's a self, as you said. So if we globalize our conversation, and if we look around, we may notice that many conflicts around the world involve identity. Both you and I deal with mediations that involve identity, be it cultural identity, be it other identities. I understand that identities are unique, that we must pay attention to them to bring healing to table. But what do you have to guide us as you have worked with conflicts, at least in the US, and you're guiding conversations globally through Strauss Institute and your work with the Institute? Can you help us think through identity and the role identity plays in conflict?
Yeah. First of all, that's a deep and powerful question. And I want to let me attack it. Let me attack it this way. What I'll say is, so your conflict is deeply tied. I believe any conflict is tied tightly to your identity. I mean, we're seeing this around the world currently, and I believe it. Because my whole focus is like, well, what do you do about that, right? So number one, I think the key thing is to respect the fact that these identities exist and honor that, right? And say, okay, we need to understand, because the identity that you've created, or that your culture has created, is what in some regards gives you meaning, gives purpose, gives you a space and place in the world. And I think we need to spend some time just respecting it. Because if you can't tell me, as I'm sitting here in front of you as a Black man, that my experience, that my identity doesn't shape my experience in the world. I mean, it does. There's no question. And so, we can't, but if we stay there, and if we stay just there on that identity, I don't know if we will be able to resolve many of the issues that sit before us, because oftentimes our identities are historically at odds with other identities, or historically with other territories. And it's like, so where can the peace be found if my identity is known to be in conflict with yours historically? And then we can look at many conflicts that have gone back ages and say this is what it is. So I believe that there's something, and this is the optimist in me, this is my faith. I believe there's something before our identity that we should focus on, and that's our humanity. And I know that sounds, wow, sounds like, well, yeah, warm and fuzzy, but I truly believe that. Look, I believe each of you have a state, you have a soul, you have a spirit, you have a purpose, and your spirit has no color. What color is your spirit? God told me years ago, a long time ago, I married my wife. My wife is not my color. And, you know, and in my family, in my legacy, that was a challenge. But God said, what color is your spirit? And I said, wow, you know, got you. And so if we think about the thing that exists before identity, and it's the idea of who you are, the purpose of who you are, the spirit of who you are, then we can begin to see things. We can hold less tightly onto our identity and start moving into a place of, okay, I get it, into a place of unity, a part of collaboration, a partnership. And I know that there's a long road from here to where I'm describing, but I believe it's possible. And this is why I love mediation. I love the work that I do, because I'm invested in that outcome.
That's a beautiful comment. If I may pick on a couple of themes you mentioned. You said we have to respect the fact that identities exist because they give us meaning and purpose. But then what I heard you didn't use the word, but what I'm hearing you say is, but we need to move. We need to move from that acceptance, from that reality that we do have identities, but we need to move, and perhaps we need to allow others' identity to coexist with ours. We don't have to minimize ours, but we have to allow coexisting of identities. And I believe that can exist if we stop seeing the world through ethnocentric lens. If I stop seeing the world through only Sukhsimranjit's lens or Shafan Roberts' lens, and then perhaps we allow this, what I like how you said, humanity to start existing. We allow, love that, spirit has no color, the spirit to walk into the room. But it's not easy, right? As you said that the road from identity to unity is not easy because we have been programmed for many years to believe in one thing and to stick to that belief.
That's right.
And to do everything for that belief to be true, right? So it's kind of going to my truth, right? My truth is what I've learned growing up. And you're saying I need to let others' truth come into my life?
Absolutely. We need to deconstruct it. I mean, we have to examine it. You know, and those truths may have served us for a purpose, and think that's great. But now we're in a different location, and we have to have information that's relevant to where we are right now. And we have to make different decisions, different choices. We need to deconstruct the realities we thought we were living in and say, okay, and re-examine that. There's some pieces we may want to keep, but there's some things that we might need to discard. And that's all I'm saying. And I'm open to that. I'm open to being reshaped and reformed. And that is, that's my heart, man. It's my heart, brother.
Professor Roberts, we can see your heart through even this small talk. We're going to play this tape for Chief Justices of many different countries in Africa who are part of our cohort now and who are going to be leading a wave of mediation leadership in Africa. They already have started. I know that we have Honorable Chief Justice of Rwanda, for example, who is such an amazing leader and wants to lead this wave among all other amazing Chief Justices who are listening and will be listening to this tape. So my last question is, any departing thoughts, any wisdom, any concluding remarks, things that you haven't been able to share with us before we end our discussion?
You know, I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to be here. I just want to thank all of you all, because literally, you know, as I shared, my purpose is healing the world. My purpose is to be a change maker and impact maker. And honestly, I get to live my purpose in this moment right now, because all of you are here listening and we're connected. And so I'm just so thankful and so grateful. And I hope to see you at some point in person. And again, thank you so much. Thank you, Sukhsimranjit. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. And thank you all for the time and allowing me to be here with you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.